Saw it on Twitter, saw it on Reddit, might as well talk about it here. I need to vent out. I play Dungeons and Dragons because I like making calculations, adjudication based on probability distributions, calculating distances and encumbrance effort effects on movement, working out magical effects consistent with the laws of the planes, and looking up events and encounters on random tables. And somehow D&D is now taken over by cosplayers and actors. Why do such people choose to play Dungeons and Dragons, which mostly has rules for what I just listed earlier? D&D sucks now for that. And economic incentives from this. Why don't you go play Fate Core or Hillfolk, Dungeon World, or even Storyteller Rod games that don't have any numbers or calculation and is geared towards story and roleplay? Just one of those fiction-first type of games. You don't even need a rule system. Just LARP. But I guess the reason you just jump on the latest buzz and most popular thing there, you obviously buy products, drink Star, and obviously, you play Dungeons and Dragons. Buddy, there isn't a Dungeons and Dragons police that are taking away your books from you and preventing you from playing the game in your style. You're perfectly free to play however you want to, just like everyone else is free to play however they want to. I mean, just for your own sake, I will give the advice that maybe when you're describing how you play, you could sound like less of a pretentious wombat, but you know, everyone's free to make their own mistakes. I'd like to start the story by saying that this is entirely my own fault. There's no problem player unless you want to count my chronic pain disorder. I'm messed up, and I'm absolutely cool with that because, in hindsight, this is hilarious. I've been in a small, awesome group playing a heavily homebrewed Curse of Strahd game for a little over half a year, and this happened 2 or so months back. This takes place in a wolf cave, where we are fighting a werewolf pack in hopes of freeing some children and finding a missing werewolf rebel. Now, for context, I have fibromyalgia? We'll go with that. It's a chronic pain disorder that fluctuates, but the important part here is that it causes brain fog. Sometimes I just stop working and can't focus and things stop making sense. The group knows about this and they're very patient when it hits. I'm very thankful for them. We're in the middle of combat. The tank is over across an electrocuted lake in the small cave we're in. The ranger is shooting from the sidelines, and the warlock, a bird, is sitting in an alcove slinging spells. My artificer is in bat form. Strahd incident, drank blood, vampire now, you know, stuff happens, and transforms back into a wolf and knocks off the werewolf ally onto a latch below. The attack goes great, but next, it's a wolf's turn to try to attack him. It rolls low, so I dodge. And then it happens. The DM asks me a question. How do you dodge it? In my mind, the image is clear. My artificer could brace himself on the floor, getting too low for the wolf to bite him. But then, it hits. The dreaded fibro fog. I end up stuttering and trying to explain myself as the words and image evade me, and I end up telling him that I just want to lie down. Are you sure? That's going to make you prone, so attacks on you have advantage. Yeah, I don't want my turn to take too long. He pauses, then agrees, moving to the next wolf. What happens next is a string of wolf after wolf managing to beat my 16 AC thanks to advantage, because none of the other party members are anywhere close enough to attack, and werewolves and vampires have that classic little rivalry. The DM is apologizing profusely after every attack, and he tries to minimize the damage as the dice go on a sadistic bender against bad decisions the artificer. To the rest of the party, they don't see my artificer panic and try to dodge, making a bad decision. They see him lie down and then get torn apart by wolves. I roll a 4 on a death save. By the time the ranger gets over, losing the tank to a werewolf, engaging him in single combat, I've lost an arm, part of my jaw, and all my hit points, and the wolves do not stop coming. A well-placed Cure Wounds and Vampiric Healing cures the worst of the damage, and the wolves are called off soon after we make our mistake. But my character's still missing right arm serves as a reminder of why he has this shiny new wolf phobia. And if that wasn't enough, every time someone goes prone or I get low to the ground in combat, there are jokes about the Artificer School of Combat Tactics. Luckily, I talked it through the DM after, and the incident has turned into a very good role-playing and character opportunity, but now I think through my combat actions a lot more carefully. I mean, yeah, going prone in combat's probably not a good idea, but you know, you had your brain fog, and it's a reminder that everybody has different stuff going on in their lives. It's gonna be a theme throughout this video. We often forget that while these are fantasy games, we are literally playing them in the real world. We're still just normal people, and some normal people have circumstances outside the game that affects the game itself. Here, it's the writer's brain fog, and they did the right thing, telling the DM and the other players about it so that everyone is aware. That's why Session 0 is so important, by the way, so that everyone knows generally what's important for the game. Though, of course, Session 0 isn't a silver bullet. Sometimes, no matter how much clarificationing you do, things happen. And here, unfortunately, your player character lost an arm, but it seems everyone took it in stride, which, yeah, great to see. Too bad not every story can be this wholesome. Yesterday, I kind of got into it with one of my players when I was running a one-shot for him and another friend of mine since everyone else for the game was unavailable. One thing I've always told my players is that I'm a minimalistic type of DM, which means I only give my players the bare minimum information they need to draw a conclusion. I'm not going to hold my players' hands, and I'm going to respect their intelligence. While I will never twist my players' words and use it against them, if they want to look for something or someone, they need to tell me because I can't read their mind. Apparently, one of the players at my table didn't understand this, and I had to explain it to him. What happened was that as the party was making their way through this facility to escape, they came upon an elevator, but find it's not working, and they need a security level clearance card to open and override the elevator's controls. The player had asked, "Do we remember seeing anyone or anywhere that might have been security?" To which I replied, "Nope, you haven't been searching any of the bodies or rooms, so you don't know." Because up until that point, the duo had just been walking around aimlessly, poking their heads in places, and seeing bodies on the ground and just ignoring them. The player in question got frustrated and said, "I wouldn't notice if someone is security. Like, I just look at a body. Do they have a security outfit?" "No, not really. You didn't inspect the body. If you're looking for something in particular, you need to tell me. If I say, you see a body on the ground, blood pooling around their corpse and oil spilling out from their faceplate, it's up to you to ask, does he look like security? To which I can say yes or no. Or ask, does he look like someone who's important or a guy who knows what's going on? I can say, yes, he's wearing a lab coat and there is a broken data slate not too far from his body. Or, no, he's just a scientist. I can't read minds, and you have been taking the time to explore the area to get the information." I explained to them. Basically, how I run my game is on the control of information. If they see a body, it's up to the players to use the clues around them to figure out what's going on. Asking questions leads to information. Information leads to knowledge. Knowledge leads to understanding. And understanding leads to power and choice. I'm not going to tell you if someone's part of the security team unless that information is relevant. If I describe you walking into a room and you see a desk, the implication is you might want to check it for information, weapons, documents, etc. I'm not going to say, there's a desk and checking the drawers reveals a note sitting inside. If you don't tell me you checked the desk, I'm going to assume you ignore it until stated otherwise. I might give you one hint if the information in the desk is valuable. Basically, you don't interact, you don't learn anything. Thankfully, this whole issue straightened itself out, and the duo began searching the subsequent rooms and bodies they found. The player was still slightly frustrated by the whole ordeal, but I can't help but feel like either he or I could have handled the situation better. This was framed as Am I the Asshole? So, yeah. Here we go. Yes, the asshole! Oh my goodness. Look, I'm not saying that you need to hold your players' hands. God knows, I love giving my players a challenge. However, good God, this game sounds so tedious. Also, some of the things this guy says just don't make sense. I'm not going to tell you about security if security isn't relevant. Security is relevant. That's the whole problem. You need security clearance to open the door. It's relevant, so why didn't you tell them? This guy could have just said, okay, while you're walking through the halls, there's some dead bodies of security guards on the ground. That's it. That's all he needs to say to make this whole bit way less tedious. But instead, the guy has to be all vague with, you walk past some bodies. What are the players supposed to do with that information? Also, why is this game framed like Redfall from Arcane Studios, a recent video game that is really bad, by the way, where there's only one way to get through the door? This is a game in your imagination. There could be hundreds of ways to get through that door. Like a bomb, for example. Why is there only one monotonous way to do it? And also, if there is going to be one way, can you at least make that way less tedious? Requiring your players to ask about every single thing that you put in front of them is a playstyle. but it's not a playstyle a lot of people are going to vibe with, to say the least. This story happened 10 years ago, and it takes place over several years. Overall, I think this whole ordeal lasted 4 or 5 years. I'm a woman, and this will be important for later. I had just moved in a city where I lived a few years prior, and I met a guy who quickly became my best friend. We had a flirty relationship at the time, and that soon became a problem. That friend learned that I was big into TTRPGs. I was 23 at the time, and I began playing when I was 7, and he invited me to be a part of his TTRPG group. The cast: Hunter, my best friend, flirty relationship at the time, but we tried not to show it during the sessions. However, we were close and sometimes would hug or touch each other, like holding hands and things like that. Nothing overly sexual, and nothing that would qualify as PDA. Doc, the leader of the group, he was nice, but sometimes he was quite misogynistic and homophobic. That doesn't sound very nice. Grumpy, Doc's best friend. Think of a mix between that guy and a neckbeard. When something didn't go his way, he often resorted to screaming or making snarky and hurtful comments. He was also the oldest player, and constantly reminded us that since he was older, he knew better than all of us on how to play. Dopey, the owner of the apartment we played at. I knew him prior to being invited to this table. He was very shy around girls and sometimes displayed strange behaviors towards me. Bashful, Dopey's roommate. Nice dude overall, but he was like a rules lawyer. Happy, a very nice and very chill dude who was just there to enjoy the game. All these guys were DMs and took turns DMing. We played several games, including Vampire the Masquerade, Cops, Legend of the Five Rings, Call of Cthulhu, Pavilion Noir, Game of Thrones, etc. Was the only girl at the table. I'm pretty feminine, but I'm used to being surrounded by guys. TTRPGs, they'll do it to you. I was also a former stage actress, so I love to roleplay. To me, it wasn't a problem to be the only girl there, but most of them did have a problem with that and constantly said that because I was there, they couldn't make sexual jokes and things like that. Now, I'm no stranger to lewd jokes myself, so I tried to diffuse that situation and told them I was just there to play. I wasn't there to stir drama. However, since I was close with Hunter, Doc and Grumpy automatically assumed that he invited me to play because he wanted to impress me somehow and because he wanted to have sex with me. I had to remind them constantly that I had played TTRPGs before, and I was there because I just wanted to play. Moreover, if Hunter and I wanted to have sex, we were both adults and mature enough to leave a board game out of it. The stage. We often played at Dopey and Bashful's apartment. I'm not gonna lie, that place was filthy. I'm not squeamish by any means, but I draw the line when the trash fills the kitchen. The sink had developed its own society, and the dishes, they piled up. I remember seeing insects crawling in there. Dopey had a dog whom he locked away in another room when we played. The poor girl hated that and spent hours barking to be out. We often found dog feces all around the apartment. Sad side note, the poor dog eventually died of hunger because Dopey was too lazy to take care of her. Oh my god. The first game, Hunter was DMing. It was a Game of Thrones game, and he offered me to play one of his NPCs and to turn her into a player character. She was a female knight and an old flame of Doc's character. I jumped on the occasion to play a badass female knight, and as soon as I chose this character, Grumpy rolled his eyes and said, "Of course you're playing this character so you can romance Doc and stir drama." Dude, I just wanted to play a warrior who could slice you into pieces with her broadsword. Like, leave me alone. I mostly ignored his comments, but it was beginning to get on my nerves. Doc and Hunter were very close friends, and I think that Doc saw Hunter as like a little brother of some kind. He constantly warned Hunter about me, saying I was there just to toy with his feelings and to take advantage of him. Luckily for me, Hunter is smart and always ignored these quote-unquote warnings. Doc had a girlfriend, and I became friends with her very quickly. Unfortunately, at the time, Doc was not a very good boyfriend, and his girlfriend often ended up at my place crying. I told her numerous times to, break up with him, but she never listened to me. Eventually, Doc led her to believe that I was trying to steal him away from her, and that I was a bad friend, and she stopped talking to me entirely. Doc couldn't comprehend for the life of him that I wasn't after Hunter's heart or influence or money or whatever, and I was just there to play the game. Grumpy was the worst. He was the elder of the group and took advantage of that fact to give unsolicited advice to everybody. Every time something didn't go his way, he resorted to screaming, throwing fits, and insulting everyone. One time, we decided to play a game, Pavilion Noir, 2 days in a row. Everybody was okay with that and available, and the decision was made in the group chat. The evening of the next day, Grumpy arrived at the session screaming at everyone that he was not consulted on the matter, which wasn't true. He was in that group chat like everyone else. He yelled at everyone for more than 20 minutes before leaving the apartment. This guy had to drive half an hour to go to the session just so he could scream at us and throw things, and then just left. Grumpy hated me, and like Doc, he tried several times to warn Hunter about me. According to him, I was just there to stir drama and get in Hunter's pants. I don't know why he believed that I needed TTRPGs to do that, but anyway, Grumpy's favorite punching bag was Bashful. Every time Bashful opened his mouth to ask about rules clarifications, Grumpy would scream at him to shut up and tell him that nobody cared about his opinion. Finally, the game from hell. Doc and Grumpy decide to co-DM a Vampire the Masquerade game. I won't go into details, but honestly, the game was fun and really well written. Eventually, Hunter and I decided to play a romance between our characters. It happened quite naturally in the story and gave us a fun thing to roleplay. But Grumpy lost it. He yelled at us for more than 20 minutes after a session and told us that we use his game as foreplay. Doc joined him and said we should tone down the romance aspect because we were making everyone uncomfortable. For the record, the romance between our characters was very tame. Our characters decided to live together, and we shared a mutual level 1 blood bond in terms of roleplay. That meant our characters were mildly infatuated with one another. Grumpy, the game master at the time, also tried to kill my character. One time at the beginning of the session, he made everyone roll for thirst. In Vampire the Masquerade, vampires can roll for thirst at the beginning of the session to indicate if they wake up thirsty or not. I rolled poorly, and Grumpy just grinned. He decided my character had partied with... Okay, once and for all, I'm gonna figure out how to pronounce this crap.
Toreadors.
Alright, yeah, partied with Toreadors the night before, and she woke up naked and thirsty in a hotel room. He told me, alright, hand me your character sheet, and decided that my character was so thirsty that she entered a state of frenzy, becoming an enraged beast and killing every human in sight. I had absolutely no control over my character whatsoever, and I had to negotiate for 10 minutes before being allowed to make a will save in order to regain control. Finally, and thanks to Hunter and Happy's input, Grumpy the Game Master accepted. I failed the check though, but I regained enough control to send a telepathic message to Hunter's character, telling him to, come grab me. Grumpy was not happy about it, but he didn't want to be unfair to me too openly. Thanks to a couple of good die checks, Hunter was able to save me, but my character had killed several innocent bystanders, and Grumpy told me that I would be in debt to Hunter's character and to the city's prince for the rest of my existence. Eventually, Grumpy and Doc stopped inviting me to sessions altogether. I was still invited when Hunter, Happy, or Bashful were DMing, but since Grumpy and Doc were the main dungeon masters, I was invited to play every other month. These guys played almost every week. I was still seeing Hunter quite often since he was my best friend, but oftentimes he would say to me, "Can't see you tonight, I have a TTRPG session," and that's when I knew something was up. Meanwhile, Doc, Grumpy, and Dopey were all talking crap behind my back, saying that I had Hunter wrapped around my little finger and that I wanted to take advantage of him. For the record, at this point, I was living alone in an apartment, had a job, and went to college. Meanwhile, Hunter lived with his parents and struggled to make ends meet, so I failed to see how I was trying to take advantage of him. They also said I was a homewrecker and I was trying to get between Doc and his girlfriend. I had a long-term boyfriend at this time, and while I thought Doc was cute, I liked him and his girlfriend very much, and I didn't want to get between them. To this day, I still don't know where that came from. Maybe it was because I told Doc's girlfriend several times to dump him, but she was often coming to my place to cry about the relationship. What was I supposed to do?
Well, obviously, you're supposed to tell her to stay with him no matter what. Obviously, doesn't matter if he hurts her feelings or whatever. You're just supposed to stay.
Why do you even care?
I just think it's obvious that the guy should be entitled to whatever he wants. Duh, stupid woman.
Also, are you okay? Because, we've got some Kit Kats in the back if you need them.
Oh, Candy? Seriously? Thanks. Why?
Oh, it's just clone cleanup usually operates around. Oh, there they are. Finally, I had to move to another part of the country, some 12 hours away. Hunter and I stayed in contact, and that's how I learned that he had taken upon himself to invite Snow, one of my best friends, to play with them. And guess what? She was accepted immediately as one of the boys and was never accused of trying to manipulate or have sex with any of them. All these years, I had tried so hard to be accepted, and now I know that Snow was invited to every session, and never once did they exclude her. I love Snow. I love her with all my heart, and I couldn't find the strength in me to be mad at her. She's a wonderful girl whom I love very much, and I'm happy for her. So why was she accepted? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but I think it has to do with Snow's sexual orientation. You see, Snow is a lesbian, and such, they couldn't accuse her of trying to get between the boys and stir trouble. Although she was accepted, Snow told me years later that she had a share of homophobic comments thrown at her by Grumpy and Doc. That doesn't sound very acceptable. Eventually, I heard through the grapevine that Grumpy had a final tantrum and left the group, never to be seen again. I don't know what happened to him. Bashful moved cities, and Dopey disappeared from the radar. I think it's because his girlfriend didn't want him to play TTRPGs anymore. I moved back to my hometown 3 years ago, and now Hunter, Snow, Happy, and I have weekly TTRPG sessions with another friend of mine, and I even began DMing myself. I'm DMing L5R5E. I eventually mended the fences with Doc, who changed a lot in a few years. Since he became a dad, we only see him here and there, but we were able to talk things out, and he confessed to me that he was blindsided by Grumpy's constant comments about me. Now, we're all friends, and we're currently playing 5 different games together. So, you could say we lived happily ever after. Thanks for reading. Man, don't you guys just love a happy ending? So at the end here, let's answer the question posed in the title. Is this girl some horrible femcel trying to get between the boys? Probably not. Of course, there could be more here. Maybe this whole entire story is fake. I don't know. We're jumping in the what is true dimension with the entire question itself. At first, I entertained the idea that maybe there's something more here, but I quickly found myself becoming one of those Reddit detectives that I hate so much. Look, at the end of the day, this story is about a couple guys who hate a girl for daring to be platonic friends with one of the boys. As for the situation with Doc's girlfriend, I mean, what are you even supposed to do? Girl comes to your place, a person you're a friend with, she comes to your place and says that her boyfriend has been bad, and frankly, your current experience with her boyfriend hasn't exactly flattered him either. I mean, what are you supposed to say?
You were given an impossible problem. Do not blame yourself for failing to solve it.
Oh, thanks, Kratos, literal god of war. This person joined someone else's friend group and was put in a bunch of impossible situations that just all sucked. But I'm glad that, against all odds, it seems to have somehow worked out with everyone coming back together to continue playing this amazing game, because at the end of the day, that's what all of this is about. All of us just want to have fun. Some people make it kind of hard, Grumpy, but I am glad eventually this group found its equilibrium and managed to do what we all want to do. Having fun playing games. Got another one for you. This was years ago. Had a nerdy boss with a nerdy wife a few jobs ago. Way into everything geeky except for tabletop role-playing games. So I offered to teach them the game of Pathfinder. Wife was on board immediately, and boss man was skeptical since his only role-playing game experience was World of Warcraft. I ran a one-shot with pre-gens to teach them the gist, and they fell in love immediately. 2 weeks later, I'm helping them to roll up their own characters. These people ended up moving away, and it's a good thing. Seeing what Boss Man had inside of him was an eye-opening experience. And I may not have voluntarily lost his number had it not been for seeing him play. Right off the rip, I explain alignments, and they both seem to understand. I tell them that this is an anything but evil campaign, and of course, Boss Man zeroes in on chaotic neutral. Not bad. Yet. Plenty of people play chaotic neutral and don't act like asshats, but I have a bad feeling anyway. He, of course, immediately tries to be as evil as possible, beyond your bog standard murder hobo stuff. Every session, he tries to kill every friendly quest giver. Not every NPC, mind you. Once he knows an NPC is supposed to have a role beyond filling out the roster of funny voices I like to do, he targets them. The other players hate this, of course, but they play it cool because Boss Man is new. He starts asking every female NPC to sleep with him. When I say no in character, he starts rolling d20s. I got a 17. That means you have to have sex with me. I tell him it does not work that way. He gets upset, but accepts this the first few times. Wait, whoa. What does that mean? The first few times? Oh, shit. After that, he starts saying he's going to kill the NPCs who refuse him. The party doesn't want to deal with the town guards trying him for murder and turning the adventure into a series of consequences for his actions, so his wife bullies him into taking it back when he starts rolling attacks against sleeping women in the tavern. Later, he starts waiting until he's alone with a female NPC and kills them discreetly against the objections of his wife. I tell him this is gross and it needs to stop, but I can't do much beyond light scolding since I have to answer to this idiot on Monday morning. The last straw was a cursed artifact that compels him to spill blood to sate a vampiric spirit. I wanted his wife's character to wear it for thematic reasons, but she was afraid when encountering it and left it alone. He decided he wanted to use it instead. I didn't want to encourage him to do more murdering, but why the hell not? They were moving soon, so what did it matter at this point? The way it worked was a will save in the middle of the night. If he failed, the artifact made him get out of bed. If he failed a second time, he had to roll a touch attack against the nearest sapient creature to draw some blood. Boss Man failed the first, passed the second. That meant he was supposed to come to his senses and not follow through with the attack. Instead, what he did was tell me that while he was in the room with his wife's character, oh boy. She immediately objected, and he retorts that she doesn't know he's there. She's asleep. Needless to say, I didn't allow it. I had her roll a DC 5 perception check to wake her up, so he doesn't have to break character. Not like it would have mattered, but still. She slaps him in person and tells him that this is unacceptable. Chillingly, he doesn't even get angry that he doesn't get his way. He looks both of us in the eye and says, "She's my wife. What's the problem?" With genuine confusion, like a kid wondering why the sky chose to be blue of all things. It's then that I have to explain to my own boss, a grown man, that ladies do not like to be touched without their consent. No one likes to be touched without their consent, especially when it involves the contents of that. Even if you marry them, you're not entitled to anyone's body. He reacts like I've just told him that Santa isn't real. We didn't play anymore after that. I was talking to wifey at a function sometime later, and the year of her birth came up. I realized for the first time how much younger than me and boss man she was. I start doing math, remembering how long he had said they were together. I asked him at work the next day to confirm the dates for my curiosity. He informed me with a straight face, "I need a drill." Just want to get that out of my whole brain. Oh my god. Just another reminder that while these games take place in fantasy universes, we play tabletop role-playing games in the real world, and sometimes the real world really kicks you in the nuts and reminds you that it sucks. I mean, there's just so much going on here, so many strange things that lead up and escalate until eventually we're at horrible, abusive, grooming marriage situation. Oh my god, how did we even get here? I mean, I know how we got here, but still, how about why did we get here? Why? Though I guess sometimes we all need a reminder of the truth that sometimes the world really, really sucks. In fact, often the world really, really sucks, and you just do your best to live through it and help other people to do the same. And that's it for today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. The clones had a lot of fun with this one, so if you enjoyed their additions, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out our Tavern adjacent podcast where we talk about all things TTRPGs, as well as answering some of your voicemail horror stories. And while you're there in the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. She's not leading you on to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you want to send your own horror stories to me, email in the description. A chance to get featured in one of these videos. But even if you don't have any stories, hit that like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.